All right, so uh, you want to learn some new techniques for approaching women
Mm,
and following up smoothly on the phone and through email.
right.
Okay, well, we dug into 7 audio tracks from a seminar on, well, let's just say it's a unique approach to dating.
Unique is one way to put it, I guess.
Yeah,
It definitely dives into some unconventional
for
strategies.
sure.
But even with the more outlandish stuff, there are actually some interesting observations about female psychology and communication patterns hidden in there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay.
One of the first things that jumped out at me was this Rodman technique
Okay.
for street approaches. You basically use your body language to block a woman's path
Oh, wow.
and then deliver your opener. I mean, is that even legal?
Um, I'll admit that one gave me pause, too.
Yeah.
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of social norms,
Yeah.
but if you peel back the layers, it is highlighting the importance of confidence
Okay.
and commanding attention.
Hmm.
Approaching someone you're attracted to can be nerve-wracking.
Oh, for sure.
And the speaker is emphasizing that projecting self-assurance is key.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying you should go around blocking people's paths,
Right.
but the underlying principle of confidence is definitely important in any interaction.
Right. You don't want to end up with a restraining order as your opening line.
Exactly.
But I can see how the confidence plays a role.
Yes.
What about some of these other techniques? He talks about opinion openers and situational openers, but the examples he gives are pretty wild, like walking up to 2 women deep in conversation and asking if you're interrupting a lesbian lover's quarrel.
Yeah, that lesbian DTR opener definitely falls into the category of proceed with caution.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is the concept of starting in the middle.
Okay.
Instead of the typical, hi, how are you? You're jumping right into a playful, engaging scenario that breaks the ice and grabs their attention.
Okay.
The idea is to be memorable and create a sense of shared amusement right from the start.
That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
He also talks about this Carson Daly opener, where he goes up to a group and says, "What's up with Carson Daly? That guy's just not funny." Apparently, it sparked a debate he could barely control. Is he serious with this stuff?
It does sound a bit outlandish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But think about it. He's finding common ground.
Okay.
Even if it's a shared opinion on something totally random,
Right.
it shows he's not intimidated by groups or strong personalities. It's about being bold and creating a connection through shared experience,
Okay.
even if it's just a debate about Carson Daly.
Okay. I can kind of see how that might work, even if it seems a bit risky.
Yeah.
But some of this stuff is really out there. He spends a lot of time talking about kino,
Right.
which is basically physical touch.
Yeah.
And suggests things like high fives, even, well, yeah, let's just say he's pretty liberal with his interpretation of playful touch.
All right, let's unpack this kino concept.
Yeah.
Physical touch can be a powerful way to build rapport and connection,
Sure.
but it needs to be calibrated to the situation and comfort levels. A high five early on can be a great way to break the touch barrier and create a playful vibe.
Okay.
But anything more intimate requires a pre-existing level of attraction and connection.
Right.
You need to read the signals carefully and make sure you're not making anyone uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely a red flag for me. He even talks about taking a woman's scarf
Oh my God.
and wrapping it around her head before kissing her. Is he trying to get slapped?
That particular example definitely comes across as more aggressive than playful.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend trying that one at home.
Yeah, no kidding.
However, I think the underlying message is that women are often drawn to men who are comfortable in their own skin
Okay.
and exude a playful, confident energy. It's about creating a sense of excitement and adventure, but always within the boundaries of respect and consent.
Okay, so let's move on to something a little less touchy. He talks a lot about body language.
Okay.
Specifically, the 6-30-10 rule, 60% body language, 30% voice tone, only 10% the actual words you say. Is that
Right.
legit?
It's not just some made-up rule. It's actually backed by a lot of research and communication.
Oh, really?
It's all about congruence.
Okay.
Your words, tone, and body language all need to be aligned to project authenticity.
Okay.
You can say the most charming thing in the world,
Yeah.
but if your body language is saying something different, it's going to fall flat.
So how you say it is just as important, if not more important, than what you say.
Exactly.
He goes on to give tips about posture.
Okay.
Chest up, shoulders, back head held high.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about walking with confidence, like you own the place.
It might seem superficial, but posture actually has a big impact on our psychology.
Interesting.
When you stand tall and open, you not only appear more confident, you actually feel more confident too. It's a feedback loop.
Oh, okay.
And that confidence is definitely attractive.
What about eye contact? He recommends holding a woman's gaze until she looks away first.
Oh.
That seems a bit intense, doesn't it?
Eye contact is another powerful form of nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
It conveys interest, assertiveness,
Mm.
and can even be a subtle way to create a playful challenge.
Okay.
But again, it's all about reading the situation, making sure you're not making anyone uncomfortable.
Right.
A soft, steady gaze can project confidence and create a connection.
Okay.
But staring someone down is just going to come off as creepy.
All right, so far we've covered approaching women in general, but what about specific environments? He talks about dance clubs and how you need to rely more on body language because of the loud music.
Yeah.
He even calls out a specific type of woman, the Kino girl.
Who is this keto girl?
Oh, yeah. And why does she love to grind on random dudes on the dance floor?
The Kino girl is an interesting observation about how different environments can influence social dynamics.
Okay.
Dance clubs with the loud music and close proximity
Yeah.
encourage a more physical, sensory-driven interaction.
Oh, I see.
But it's important to remember that just because someone is comfortable dancing close doesn't necessarily mean they want to take things further.
So you need to be careful about misinterpreting signals.
Exactly.
Speaking of signals, he shares two pretty interesting and kind of strange dance floor routines.
Yeah?
The first is the spinning off girls routine.
Oh my gosh.
He finds a group of girls dancing in a circle, jumps in the middle,
Wow.
dances with each one, and then spins them off like a human merry-go-round. He claims the bouncer even knew who he was because he danced with every girl in the club.
It's definitely about putting on a show,
Yeah.
creating social proof.
Yeah.
It's an interesting observation about how standing out from the crowd,
Yeah.
even if you're not the best dancer,
Right.
can make you memorable and create intrigue.
The other dance move is even weirder.
Okay.
It's called dance sexy. He approaches a girl and asks if she knows how to dance sexy, then sits her down and gives her a mock lap dance. Seriously.
I'll admit that one's a bit out there,
Yeah.
but it does highlight the power of playful dominance
Okay.
and pushing boundaries. As long as it's done with the right intention and energy, and most importantly, consent,
Sure.
misreading the signals could lead to a very uncomfortable situation.
Okay, before we move on to phone and email techniques,
Okay.
I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on all of this? What stands out to you?
Well, while some of these techniques are definitely questionable,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't recommend trying them all out verbatim,
Right.
the underlying themes of confidence, playfulness,
Yeah,
and understanding how to engage someone's attention are valuable.
for sure.
It's about adapting those principles to your own personality and style.
That's a great point. It's not about becoming a cheesy pickup artist.
Exactly.
It's about taking these nuggets of insight and applying them authentically.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next phase, connecting via phone and email. The speaker emphasizes the importance of understanding what he calls the mundane state. Can you explain what he means by that?
Sure. So imagine you meet someone at a bar or club.
Yeah.
There's that initial spark, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's feeling good. The energy is high. You're both in a social, flirty mood.
Right.
But when you call a few days later, she might be back in her daily routine. She's at work. She's running errands. She's not necessarily feeling that same level of excitement.
Right.
That's what he calls the mundane state.
So you're saying you can't just assume the attraction you built in person will automatically carry over to a phone call.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He argues that women are particularly influenced by their emotional state.
Okay.
So your job on that phone call is to recreate a peak emotional experience.
Which brings us back to those interesting phone routines, like calling and introducing yourself as the man of her dreams or pretending to be your own personal assistant. Sven, I mean, come on, who actually does that?
So I know they sound ridiculous,
Yeah.
but if you can get past the initial cringe factor,
Yeah.
they're actually tapping into an interesting psychological concept.
Okay.
By creating a playful, unexpected scenario, you're disrupting her normal thought patterns and engaging her curiosity. Instead of thinking about her to-do list, she's wondering, who is this guy?
Okay, I'm starting to see the method to the madness. He also talks about something called the anti-slut defense,
Okay.
which is the idea that women are hesitant to return calls or seem too eager because of societal pressures. It's almost like they've been conditioned to play hard to get. Is that what he's getting at?
That's one way to interpret it.
Hmm.
He's acknowledging that women face a lot of social pressure when it comes to dating and sexuality.
Sure.
His suggestion is to frame the interaction as an adventurous undertaking,
Okay.
something that makes her feel empowered and in control.
Right.
He even talks about engaging her naughty girl side early on, which, to be honest, sounds a bit creepy to me.
Yeah, that's a bit much. But I can see how reframing the interaction as something exciting and adventurous rather than just another boring date could be appealing.
Right. It's about shifting the focus from societal expectations to the individual connection and shared experience.
He also dives into this concept of the slow track, which is essentially a long game of playing hard to get.
He positions the slow track as a strategy for women who aren't immediately available or interested in a quick hookup.
Right.
It involves staying in contact teasing with potential meetups,
Yeah.
but always maintaining a degree of distance. It's almost like a push and pull dynamic.
So the idea is to build anticipation and make her chase you a little bit?
Essentially, yes.
Right.
He argues that this approach can create a buildup of sexual tension and make the eventual meetup that much more exciting.
Okay.
Whether that actually works in practice is debatable,
Sure.
but it's an interesting theory.
It sounds a bit manipulative to me, but I can see how the element of mystery and anticipation could be appealing. What about some more practical advice? Does he give any tips for phone calls and emails that aren't straight out of a cheesy rom-com?
He does offer some more grounded advice.
Okay.
For example, he talks about optimal call timing,
Okay.
ideally within a week of meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and emphasizing that you should be in a flirtatious mood when you call.
That makes sense. You want to project confidence and genuine interest, not desperation. Does he say anything about what to do if she doesn't answer?
He recommends leaving short, playful messages, something that piques her curiosity and makes her want to call back. But he also stresses the importance of not going overboard with calls and texts.
Right.
You don't want to come across as needy or clingy.
And what about if she doesn't call back at all? Should you just give up?
He emphasizes persistence, but within reason.
Okay.
If someone isn't responding, there's no need to bombard them with messages. It could be that she's genuinely busy or not interested.
Right.
He also points out that sometimes it's not about you at all.
Yeah.
There could be things going on in her life that are preventing her from responding.
That's a good point. It's easy to take these things personally,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it really has nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of different communication styles, he also highlights the value of texting, especially for women who might be hesitant to talk on the phone. It can be a more casual and low-pressure way to keep the conversation flowing.
So use texting to maintain that connection and build rapport, but don't overdo it. What about this whole friend zone dilemma? Does he offer any insight into how to avoid that?
He actually dedicates a good chunk of time to that.
Yeah.
He argues that the frequency and nature of your contact shape a woman's expectations of the relationship.
So if you're constantly texting, calling, and hanging out, she's going to assume you're interested in more than just friendship.
Exactly. He says that women often infer relationship status from actions rather than words. So if you're acting like a boyfriend, she's going to assume that's what you want, even if you haven't explicitly said so.
So how do you avoid giving the wrong impression?
His advice is to be mindful of the frequency of your interactions.
Okay.
He suggests limiting contact to once or twice a week, both in terms of phone calls and meetups.
Okay.
This shows you have a life outside of pursuing her, and it creates a healthy space for attraction to develop organically.
So it's about finding that balance between pursuing someone and maintaining your own life and independence.
Exactly. And he stresses that once you've crossed a certain threshold of intimacy or commitment, it's very difficult to go back without creating confusion or resentment.
So no escaping the friend zone once you're in it.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
His point is that it's easier to set the right expectations from the beginning than to try and change them later on.
Okay.
It's about being aware of your actions and the messages they're sending.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from decoding the mundane state to navigating the complexities of the friend zone. What are your key takeaways from this section on phone and email techniques?
I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of understanding the psychology behind women's communication patterns.
Okay.
It's not about manipulating anyone, but about being aware of the subtle dynamics at play and adjusting your approach accordingly.
Right. It's about being respectful, authentic, and understanding that dating is a two-way street. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the world of pickup artistry.
We have...
Some of it's been pretty out there.
It has?
Some of it surprisingly insightful.
Hmm?
What are your final thoughts on all of this?
Well, it's definitely been a wild ride.
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that even though some of these techniques are, shall we say, a bit over the top,
Yeah.
there are valuable nuggets of insight hidden within the craziness.
Well, right. It's not about turning into some kind of pickup artist robot.
Right.
It's about understanding the psychology behind attraction and communication,
Mm-hmm.
and then applying those principles in a way that feels authentic to you.
Exactly. For example, the emphasis on confidence and playfulness,
Right.
those are qualities that are attractive in any context, not just in the pickup artist world.
Absolutely. But how do you take those concepts and translate them into real life interactions? I mean, not everyone is going to be comfortable with some of the more aggressive techniques we've discussed.
That's where the real challenge lies. It's about taking those core principles, like confidence, playfulness, understanding female psychology, and adapting them to your own personality and style.
So instead of trying to memorize lines or copy someone else's routines,
Right.
you need to find your own authentic way to express those qualities.
Right. And that's where self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
What makes you feel confident? What kind of humor do you connect with? What your personal boundaries when it comes to physical touch and flirting?
Those are great questions. It's almost like this whole deep dive is less about learning specific techniques and more about prompting self-reflection and personal growth.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about becoming more aware of how you interact with others, what
Yeah.
messages you're sending, and how you can become a more confident and engaging version of yourself.
So what's the challenge you'd leave our listener with today?
I'd say the challenge is this. Think about those core principles we've discussed,
Okay.
and then find one small way to incorporate them into your own dating life.
Okay.
Maybe it's paying more attention to your body language or trying out a new opener that feels authentic to you. The key is to experiment, see what feels right, and have fun with it.
That's great advice. It's about taking those nuggets of wisdom and turning them into your own personal gold.
Exactly. And remember, dating is a journey, not a destination. It's about learning, growing, and connecting with others in a meaningful way.
So go out there, be confident, be playful, be yourselves, and most importantly, have fun. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.